Mr. Speaker, last week, President Biden ordered U.S. intelligence to investigate two likely theories on the origin of the coronavirus, one being that it originated from human contact with an infected animal, and the other that it came from a lab accident at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Last weekend, the Foreign Affairs Minister said the government supports this U.S. investigation. Given that government scientists at the government's lab in Winnipeg closely collaborated with the Wuhan lab, will the government make available to U.S. investigators all relevant documents, including the scientists' lab notes?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we have said before, the two individuals in question are no longer employed at the laboratory, and we cannot provide any further details. As to the origin of COVID-19, we believe and support the approach taken by President Biden to investigate something which has turned the world upside down and killed over 3 million people. We feel it's important to do everything we can to determine where COVID-19 originated from.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, we know that 7 government scientists at the government's National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg collaborated with scientists in China, particularly at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We also know that one of those government scientists, Dr. Chu, made at least 5 trips to China in a 2-year period to collaborate on virus research. Seeing that the government says that it supports this U.S. investigation, will the Canadian government grant access to U.S. investigators to question scientists from the Winnipeg lab as they pursue the origin of the coronavirus?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question. I thank the member for the question, and the member knows that part of scientific research is open and collaborative research. We know also that we have a strong role to play in protecting Canada from human and cyber actors that pose real threats to Canadian research, to integrity, to intellectual property. While the opposition continues to stoke fear, we'll remain focused on stopping the spread of COVID-19, on supporting the National Microbiology Lab to do their important work in fighting COVID-19 here domestically and internationally as we uncover the science that will lead us forward.
Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister hopes that we'll stop asking questions about the Winnipeg lab, but the top secret information from a Canadian lab is now in the hands of the Chinese Army. The Prime Minister doesn't seem to care, but he must admit that no one believes that the People's Liberation Army intends to use this technology for humanitarian purposes. Can the Prime Minister confirm that no Canadian lab is collaborating with the Chinese military? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize. I thought I heard you say the Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Speaker. Either Conservatives don't understand national security or they don't care. The agency has provided documents in relationship to this situation with redactions to prevent confidentiality. Of course, I encourage the Conservative Party not to use national security and put national security of Canadians at risk for partisan gain.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we understand full well national security, and what we understand is that Canada had top secret information stolen. That we understand full well. But now, as to whether the President of Public Health Canada has the power and the discretion to hide information, we know that answer is no. Documents must be provided to the committee as asked. Is the Minister of Health in agreement with that or not?
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, we will participate. And in fact, those documents have been provided to the committee with redactions to protect confidentiality. But Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. I would encourage the Conservative Party not to put national security of Canadians at risk for partisan gain. They are playing a dangerous game, Mr. Speaker. The member opposite knows that we have processes and procedures, indeed committees that are empowered to take a look at these documents.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the Liberals initially failed to provide these documents, it was actually the member for Cumberland-Colchester, a Liberal MP, who put forward a motion at the committee demanding the full disclosure of these documents. And all Liberals, including the Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, voted in favour of it. In 2011, Liberals, including the Prime Minister and the Foreign Affairs Minister, voted for a motion which declared the undisputed privileges of Parliament under Canada's Constitution, including the absolute power to require the government to produce uncensored documents when requested. That is a direct quote from a Liberal opposition motion that was voted for by the Prime Minister and the Foreign Affairs Minister. Does the government still believe that Parliament maintains these privileges?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, we see the Conservatives trying to stoke fear. Either they don't understand national security or they don't care. It's quite obvious. The agency has provided these documents as requested by the committee with redactions to protect confidentiality. I'd encourage the Conservative Party to put the national security of Canadians in the forefront and stop these partisan games.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Speaker, that was clearly not an answer. But when it comes to national security, holding the government accountable for their failures on national security is what we must do in order to uphold the national security of Canadians. When someone affiliated with the Chinese Military's Academy of Military Medical Sciences is working and gathering information at a top secret Canadian lab, Canadians have a right to know what happened. They have a right to demand answers. Canadians are concerned about the government's willful blindness and naivety when it comes to threats to our health and national security. So when will the government allow Parliament to do its job, recognize the rights and privileges that are founded in our Constitution when it comes to Parliament? When will they hand over these documents?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've been clear, those documents have been provided to the committee. In fact, the redactions were minimal to protect the confidentiality of the situation. Mr. Speaker, again, I would encourage the Conservative Party to stay focused on the national security of Canadians and not put it at risk for partisan purposes. We are proud of the critical role that the National Microbiology Lab is playing to protect Canadians and indeed to partner with researchers around the world to find the tools and the support that we need to get ourselves free of COVID-19 globally.